Hello everyone, I hope you're doing great. So I finally got my hands on the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, and I've been playing it for a couple of days now. While that's not nearly enough time to play all the games the collection has to offer, I've played these games many times during my life. Well, some more than others, but still. And I think the time I spent with the collection was more than enough to evaluate its worth as collection. So I just want to speak my mind and give you guys my honest thoughts on this collection of games so dear to my heart. But before we begin, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as this helps the channel a lot. And if you are into Mega Man Battle Network, try checking out the video I made about its sequel series, Mega Man Star Force, clicking right here. Now, into the video. If you don't know yet, the Battle Network series is a spin-off of the Mega Man franchise. The game takes place in the distant year of 2000X, whatever that means, where people rely heavily on the internet and technology for their daily lives. I guess any resemblance to real life is likely pure coincidence. And to help in their daily lives, people use what's called a personal terminal, or PET, a small handheld device that serves as a personal computer and a communication tool. Or coincidences? Well, in each PET resides a NetNavi, short for Network Navigator, which are digital AI avatars that help their users interact with the internet. What? This is getting too real. But you gotta admit that it's impressive that a game released 22 years ago. Oh, I'm getting old. Anyway, for a game released more than 20 years ago, Mega Man Battle Network still feels very modern in its premise. You play as a young boy named Len Hikari and his NetNavi, Megaman.exe. The game's story follows them both as they battle various rogue NetNavis and viruses that threaten the internet safely. Gameplay in Mega Man Battle Network is a mix of real-time action and tactical RPG. While in the real world you play as Len, you can jack in various devices with Mega Man to access the virtual world. And while exploring it, you might come across a random virus encounter and a battle starts. Battles are very different from other RPGs, as you have full control of Mega Man, and you can move freely around your side of the terrain, dodging enemy attacks and using a variety of weapons and abilities to defeat them in real time. But they are still turn-based though, as when your custom gauge has been filled, you can press a button and the custom menu will open up. Here the game kinda stops, and you can select and use a variety of battle chips that you can get by busting viruses. And as you progress the story, they will get stronger, but so will the chips you get from defeating them. And keep in mind, this is not a review of each individual game, but of the collection as a whole. Although, if you want to know my personal ranking, this is it. Battle Network 5 and 6 tied up at the top, followed by Battle Network 3, with 2 and 4 tied up below that, and Battle Network 1 right at the bottom. That being said, gosh, I hate that this collection is split up in 2 volumes. These are GBA games, there's no excuse for that. You could try and argue that the concept art gallery and music player are what makes it having to be split up, but the 2 games together only amount to 3.2 gigabytes on the Nintendo Switch, so no, that's no excuse. It is just a cheap way that Capcom found to get more money from its customers. But that being said, is it a nice collection at the end of the day? Because that's what matters, right? Those are all good to great games, all in one great packaging, so there's no way to go wrong here. What will make or break this collection is how well the games are being emulated and what extra features it brings to them. In that regard, this is a solid collection. And as soon as you boot up the game, you can see how much effort was put into it. The main menu between games is made to look like a PAT from the games, which is especially neat when you see it in the Switch's handheld mode. Megaman.exe here is even voiced by the original voice actors from the Japanese and American dubs of the anime. And I bet this is a treat for those who grew up with the anime. For me though, this is nothing more than an annoyance. You see, I grew up in Brazil with the Brazilian dub of the anime, and because of that, this feature has basically no appeal to me. In fact, I found it very annoying when Mega Man wouldn't shut up over the menu. Gladly, there's an option to make him silent. And no matter how cool this is to some, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was a very low effort way to mask the shortcomings of this collection while appealing to nostalgia. And don't get me wrong, the whole point of a collection like this is to appeal to nostalgia. I just think that more effort could be put in other areas of the collection. Like having Mega Man on screen as he was in the PT is nothing new for the series, as Battle Network's Double Team GS already did exactly that. Which is a nice segue into our sponsor. No, just kidding, I don't have a sponsor. Which is a nice segue into my biggest gripe with this collection. Some of these games, specifically the first and fifth games, already received ports on the Nintendo DS. And in both cases, the games received a ton of quality of life improvements that are sadly absent from this version. I have my own gripes with the quote-unquote remake of the first game on the DS. You see, my first Battle Network game was the fourth one. Yeah, I know it's not a good one to start, as it's often considered the weakest of the whole series, but I find it super hard to go back to the visual style of the first three games, as I just think they are more simplistic. A simple sprite swap for the newer ones would do wonders for the remake on the DS, but that's besides the point. I'm getting off track here, this video is not about it. And despite that, I can't deny that the game did have some great improvements over the original, like a dedicated button to run out of battles. The first Battle Network game being the only one to not have that, and instead you have a chip, which can be super frustrating if you are in a pinch and have to wait for the chip to roll while you try your best not be deleted. Not only that, but the version also has a map on the bottom screen to help you find your way when jacked in. As you see, the internet can feel very samey in this first outing, making it super easy to lose yourself in this maze-like map. And that's only for the first game port on the DS. Mega Man Battle Network 5 also received a port with some great improvements. And granted, most of the improvements added to that version are now also available in this collection due to the addition of the patch on download cards. More into that soon. But some other features are absent, like the minimap for the internet, again, the critical state, the transport chip that allow you to make exchanges between the two versions of the game, and especially the higher fidelity soundtrack. All those features made these two games more enjoyable, and it's a shame that those were not the versions of the games used for this collection. The Battle Network 1 remake even has a new story scenario where it crossovers with the Star Force series, and I personally think that it would have been super cool and get everyone hooked for a future Star Force collection. Granted, this specific version of the game was never released outside Japan, but like the entirety of the game is the same, they would only have to translate a few lines of dialogue for the new scenario, and then before you say like, oh, that's too much work, they translated the cut content of the Battle Network 6 that was also only available in Japan. There is no excuse, guys. I just think a little bit more effort would be super welcome in this specific case, even more so than the talking Mega Man we got instead. Like, in a perfect world, we could even have both the GBA and DS versions of the game available and let just players choose between them. But alas, this was not the case. In that same perfect world, I would be super appreciative of having new translation for the games, not only because some of these games are full of typos, especially Battle Network 4, but because maybe having the games available in more languages would help them reach even more people. Like I said before, I grew up in Brazil, and sadly these games were never released in Portuguese, and I used to play them a ton as a child, but I could never really understand what's going on because it was in English, until I replayed them years later. I would only keep playing because the gameplay was honestly super fire, and it still is. But like, you have no idea how lost I would get sometimes because of the language barrier. But it's not all bad though, there are plenty of stuff in this collection that I like. For example, I adore what they did with the font in this game. The original font used to be very pixelated and was never intended to be seen any other display than the Game Boy screen. And if you ever try to play any GBA game or the Nintendo GameCube's Game Boy player, you know exactly what I'm talking about. While that's not game-breaking or anything like that, it's super nice to have the font being replaced for a higher resolution one, especially in games that are so heavy on text like this. And another great addition, as I mentioned before, Capcom included all the patch and download cards in this collection. If you are not aware of, a lot of content in these games were locked behind physical cards you had to buy at the time, most of which were never released outside Japan, just like the Battle Network 1 remake. But they are now available here and you can activate them by going the Mega Man menu of each game. And man, finally being able to play as Best Cross on Mega Man Battle Network 5 after reading about it on the internet as a kid is a dream come true. And that's not all. I can't commend Capcom enough for bringing online features to all of the 6 games, including chip trading and PvP. Only time will tell if all games have a viable competitive base, but for the last couple of years, Mega Man Battle Network 6 have had a strong community around this competitive meta. And even then, the online play is not cross-play between platforms, and I don't know why. That's just stupid. Somehow it seems that for every right, Capcom can't go without doing a wrong. And yeah, this collection is also chock full of extra content like hundreds of concept art, dozens of musics to listen whenever you want, and even achievements for those who are more hardcore fans. But I don't think that's enough. I would prefer better overall experience in the games themselves. It also has a disgusting filter that blurs the pixels. Please don't play with that on. I beg you. It has a nice border variety, which is great. I just wish they would have an option to turn them off, as they can be very distracting in my opinion. And while speaking of things that I wish were in this collection but are not, I would really appreciate a button to toggle auto run, instead of having to hold the B button the whole time. So, what's my overall rating for the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection? Well, it's a collection with high highs and very low lows in my opinion. If you really want to play the best version of the first Mega Man Battle Network game, please take a look at the DS port instead. There is an amazing fan translation for that, and I'll leave the link in the description for your convenience. And if you want a better integration between the two versions of the Mega Man Battle Network 5, then seek out the Nintendo DS port. Other than that, this is a perfectly serviceable way to officially play these games. Even more so considering the online features, although they have some missteps there. Yeah, there are some hiccups here and there in execution, and I wish some things were prioritized over the others, but this is a solid 8 out of 10 collection. But at the end of the day, this is just my opinion, and I know I can be very passionate about these games, so I can't help myself but having a strong opinion about a collection of them. Anyway, what do you think? Do you agree with me, or do you think these are the perfect collection? Tell me in the comments below. I've been Pedro from Nintendo, and I'll see you next time. Bye!